righty, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. There we go. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTrain.tv. Hello, everyone on the internet. Welcome to the last day for the last live stream day for this calendar year. Today was supposed to be kind of like a party day where we drink and tell stories about Claris and our lives doing FileMaker work. But then real shit happened. And so suddenly, whenever I run into problems, and I can almost automatically see the applicability to explain to other people who run into those problems. So it's a really good one to have. We got a short group of people today here again. So yeah, we continue to work with Claris. Christian Schmidt works tightly with Claris, bringing great products. So let's back up. Oh, well, let me just start this real quick. Live stream schedule. If you go to fmtrain.tv, just cover the low-hanging fruit. Today we're covering changing image formats and containers. That's the G-rated way of saying that blew up with my customer database with image taking, and Christian Schmidt was like the Lone Ranger. So Christian, I don't know if you have a German Lone Ranger or how that would even work. Is there a German analogy to the Lone Ranger? It's a guy in the Midwest, a dude who would be on a horse, he'd run across and he would rescue people with his gun. One guy, one horse, one gun. And he would stop the bad guys and fix problems. That's literally Christian Schmidt on a horse.
Sounds like a superhero.
It was a superhero of the Old West. It really kind of was. Called the Lone Ranger. He had a little mask over his face so no one could tell who he was. So yeah, very much like that. So Christian Schmidt is the Lone Ranger in the world of FileMaker, and he comes riding to the rescue. He did that again. People say, why is he on the show so much? Because he digs our asses out of the fire like all the time. All the time. It's crazy. And so once again, we'll get to that momentarily, but that's what today. Then notice all these days of Christmas. I put these in here so people don't say, Richard, you haven't uploaded your schedule for Christmas and New Year's. Here's the schedule. It's empty. We will resume broadcasting on January 3rd. Bob,
I moved it to the 4th because I can't find dates. So We'll resume broadcasting on the 4th.
we have no minions to do the live stream on the 3rd, so we'll start on Thursday the 4th. Next year with File. Listen, I've been sitting in a lot of meetings. I can only tell you next year is going to be really okay. I can't say the F word. Next year with FileMaker platform is going to be really cool. I know it seems like we've been treading water a little bit, right, with the platform. The management team at Claris had to figure out who to listen to and who was telling them the truth and who wasn't telling them the truth. And they finally figured out to listen to the people who knew what they're doing, which seems what's happening. And so suddenly now we have all this forward progress where the platform's largely been, in the big picture, idle. It's been idle for years. I mean, they've been doing little fixes and things like that, and some things, kind of a couple nice things along the way. But now it seems like there's a major engineering effort in a number of areas. Really exciting. So I am enthusiastic about what 2024 holds for the platform. Let's talk about today. I'm going to pivot real quick. So Monkey Bread Software. So before we get to Christian, let me talk to you about my situation. So here is the use case. Some of you will enjoy this. This is a little bit of backstory. So this is the project that I've been working on, right? And it's in production. It's in use. This is real data. Unless you see something in here that says test record, there's like a test record down here. And so, and the customer still, I've got a couple 70-year-olds who are working on the software, and they are kind of grumpy about this because they want it to work like paper, and we mimic paper pretty closely. But then there's a bunch of 50-year-olds who are using the software who think this is the best ever, right? They love it. I've been building this to meet what I thought customer expectations were as best we could. We run along the problems along the way. I called Christian Schmidt at Monkey Bread and said, hey, this sucks. He goes, no problem. I have 7,224 features in my product, and one of those will solve your problem. And I'm like, awesome. So here's what we have. We're running around, and I'm not going to go through the whole song and dance with you, but here's what we're doing. They're working on the aircraft in the hangar. You folks have seen this before. The mechanic says they're working on it, wrenching and stuff, and they say, oh my God, there's a giant crack. And it could be the guy bent over too far and his pants falls down. I've seen that one before, but that's not the crack. They got a crack in the tail boom on something. We got to repair it. So they get out their phone, take a couple pictures like before and after, and what they want to do is easily attach it into the aircraft. So if I go down here to this aircraft right here, I can come in here and I can see photos of bits and pieces that are being replaced and updated, right? So here's a part of a tail rotor assembly. I can click over here. If I hit open, it'll probably pop this up so you can see it, right? So they're taking pictures of this stuff along the way, right? The first discovery is that trying to load the containers directly into the remote database, the person would take a picture and it would be slow, and take a picture and be slow. So what we ended up doing is building a local little app that runs on the phone here, little FMP12 file. We take pictures in it, and it's local, so it snaps, super fast. And when they're done, they say, and they're all saved locally on the phone, they say update or upload. And what it does, it connects to this database server here. It knows what project they're on, and it simply attaches children, it creates a new record. It puts the photo in there. It attaches the one work order number right here, over here, the foreign key. That's all it has to do. Does one, does two. It takes it like a minute or two. You can put your phone down, make sure it doesn't sleep. It uploads them, and then it clears itself. It's perfect. It's great. So we're using that, and suddenly out of the blue, we're using because they're using iPhones. I use a Mac, but they're using iPhones. Because even people who use Windows on a computer will use iPhones, which is a little bit of a disconnect because they don't know any better, right? They just use iPhones because they think that phone works better. Never occurred to them that the company that made the phone probably made a computer that works awesome as well. So you get this dichotomy where people are switch hitting. So here's what happens. We go into Windows, and you got a picture, and you folks will recognize this picture up here immediately. So this is the one we just saw, okay? There's the picture we just saw. And then you upload more photos. There's a photo of me. We're doing test photos here. And then you get this photo right here. And you're like, well, that's a corrupted image. Somehow it's corrupted. What happened? Why did it happen? This is not good. And this feels very circa 95 and 96 and 97, probably 96, 97, 98 is when we started doing them more. Whenever FileMaker 7 was like 2004. But anyway, around the turn of the century, we would start to see these issues, and what it would be like, well, someone was uploading the photo with their internet connection, their 2G internet connection, or their ISDN line. It got disconnected, so that image is corrupted. Got it. But then suddenly someone uploads 10 images on their phone, and all 10 are screwed up. And I'm like, in front of the customer, and I look really stupid. I'm like, oh, well, I'll investigate that right away, because I still have the original images on the phone. So we haven't lost the data, but clearly in here, it looks like it's corrupted and it's thrown away. So here is the discovery of what I made and how it leads to Christian Schmidt. So you see this on Windows or on some computer. And then, but what's confusing about it is if you open this up on the Mac, it looks correct. And you're like, no. So there is a giant clue. You open it up on both. That's why if you're doing development and you have people using both, you have a Mac, you have a Windows, you have an iPhone, you have an Android if you're doing that, and you're testing all these in parallel, right? And so, so the work's on the Mac. It looks good on the Mac. It looks good on the it doesn't look good on Windows. First thing I do, just to remove that option, is I update all the software. So both the operating systems are up to date, the phone operating system's up to date, the Windows operating system's up to date. And so notice that in this case right here, it reports it back as HEIC. So for those of you who don't know too much about what HEIC is essentially HEIC, HEIF is a new, better file format. It doesn't matter how and why, it's all mathematics, right? But the mathematicians decided that they could compress an image better, further, faster with HEIF, HEIC, and then there's a video one, HEIV or something like that. And so, of course, Apple, being Apple, said, we'll adopt it. We don't give a shit if anyone else does because we're awesome and we're Apple, right? So Microsoft, being typical Microsoft, says, we're not going to support that out of the box because we don't need to, because we're Microsoft and we don't need you. And so literally as a developer, we're stuck between two giant companies. Same with Google. You put Google, Microsoft, and Apple in a cage fight, and they would, last one standing, they'd just knife out of each other. The ultimate sport rivals, right? So that's that kind of deal with these guys. So, of course, as developers, we don't have that choice because we have customers who are going to use both. What do you do? So then what happens is that FileMaker doesn't tell you that there's really a problem. this graphic pops up in here, and sometimes the graphic will even twitch and change as you bring the record up and bring it down. It'll adjust. You can tell it's not happy. And so then what ended up happening is I made this discovery. Someone says, well, Windows 11 Pro, I'm using 11 Pro, will ask you to install the HEIC, it's called a codec, compression algorithm, but it installs that software so you can read it. It's a Microsoft product or some sort of open source thing or whatever. I said, well, never ask me. So I went to Windows. I took one of these images. I export it, put it on the desktop of Windows. I double click it, and up comes this right here. And I'm going to zoom in on this. So this is the dialogue you would never see. FileMaker's never going to give it to you, okay? Because whatever. So the operating system says, hey, you should install this. So here's the rub. And I didn't install it on this computer because I wanted to preserve this. Here's the deal. This goes back to the same problem we had with Flash back in the day, and although it was a Apple problem. And that is that all these websites would use Flash, and in order for you to get Flash on the Mac, and this is before Steve Jobs had his pitch fit with Flash and he ran out of business, let's say like 5-10 years before that. Flash was a big deal. So out of the box, like a brand new box, Windows would read websites, and certain websites Apple couldn't read unless you did this special install on each and every Macintosh. So you had to buy the Mac, then download extra. In this case, you buy 2 new computers, you buy a new Mac, you buy a new Windows machine. Windows, you have to download extra. And the problem is that like Big Valley is only 3 or 4 computers. I can clearly go to each of those computers, and if I click on this and run through the install, then this problem goes away. But for all of you out there who have more than 3 machines in a deployment, which is most of my engineers too, most of my customers are much larger than that, then you're not going to go to each computer and double click that, put that in there, because on Windows, in a organization, you probably don't have administrative access. You got to have the main system administrator agree to install it for you, right? And they may not want to install it, or they may not trust it. Who knows what the issue is? But this creates a major to-do item. So what I like to do is pretend like the Windows machines and the Mac machines are stock and cannot be molested. So that leads us to our problem. How the hell do we make this work on both? And the short answer to the question is, how do we make this work, is that we have to tell Monkey Bread plugin to read the image and to convert it to PNG or to JPEG, okay? So we have that issue, okay? So we did this, right? And then I ran into another situation. I'm simply going to tell you about it because I don't want to reproduce it. It's a pain in the ass. We had a handful of records that were screwed up like this. And Christian's going to talk about this momentarily. I'm going to let him drive and he can talk about it on his end. But they were screwed up like this, but they reported back as JPEG. And they weren't JPEGs. They were, in fact, HEICs. Because if I took those images and convert them to JPEG, then they displayed correctly. So they were HEICs in here. This is get container attribute, the extension, and they would report back as JPEG. So it was foobar. And we backtracked this and backtracked this. We ran all the updates. The testing we did on this was as of 2 or 3 days ago. Latest operating systems across the board. What it is that would cause this to happen is there is a bug, for whatever reason, in the iOS operating system that affects at least the iPhone 12. Because if you have the same software, same operating system, same version of FileMaker Go, same everything else, and you do it on a 14, for example, it doesn't do that. If you put an HEIC in there, like directly connect with Go, it becomes, or you put it in, it's an HEIC here, and it reports it as an HEIC here, okay? But if you had the operating system, if you took an image and you directly inserted it in HEIC with Go on iPhone 12, right? There was a bug in there, and it basically points directly to an operating system issue where the operating system is improperly reporting data back to FileMaker Go. And remember, when Apple makes phones, in the operating system, they have to, the code is forked all the time to deal with all the little variations in hardware, because the hardware in this is a 12 versus the 14 that I have 2 phones, versus the 15 versus the 11 versus the 10 versus the 13 versus whatever. There's all sorts of spots in there where it says, if I'm taking a picture on a 12, then do this other and if I'm taking a picture on the 14, do this other. The operating systems have to be forked to deal with that scenario, right? So the fork on the operating system that deals with an iPhone 12 and an HEIC, okay, on an HEIC has a bug in it. And in so much as that operating system interacts with FileMaker Go, because Go just goes to the operating system and says, hey, what is this? Because FileMaker Go and FileMaker Pro on the Macs and stuff, when it does graphic rendering, it gives it the operating system to do it. For the most part, it doesn't do it itself unless it's like a JPEG, something basic. But if it's anything fancy at all, it offloads it to the operating system. And that's where there's operating system differences. Here's the short version of this. So what we ended up doing is writing a script. And I'm happy to show you folks this script real quick. So we ended up having 2 problems. One, we had a problem that we had 2 problems. One is that we would have an HEIC that also correctly reported it was an HEIC, and you couldn't see it on Windows. One problem. Second problem is that you have an HEIC that can't be seen on Windows, yet it reports it's a JPEG, which is a double foobar, because what you'd like to do is say, do a find for all the HEICs. In fact, that was the first script I had. Do a find for all the HEICs, and then just run the monkey bread in a loop. We talked about loops yesterday. Do a loop and convert each one of those, except that some of them were HEIC, but they report as JPEG, back to the iPhone operating system bug. And Christian Schmidt says this is a very common problem. I'm going to let him talk about this momentarily. And so if I go to a script workspace, this is how we solved it. This problem cannot be solved unless by FileMaker by itself. It's unsolvable. You have to solve this with a plugin from a third-party developer. And I don't know any third-party developers that work as hard on a plugin as Christian Schmidt does. That's all he does every day. In fact, I would be shocked, as of yesterday, 2 days ago, he had 7,224 functions. I would be surprised if that number hasn't gone up since I last talked to him. Probably by a couple functions anyway. He's always adding new stuff. So if I go into, so once again, this was Big Valley Aviation was a copy of FM Starting Point. If I go down to, not in preferences, but I have this monkey bread folder right here, okay? And I had a couple scripts over here I was playing with, and I had this one right here. Is it this one? Or, yeah, this is the full one right here. So this is the script that, and this is what I ended up writing up here, some comments to myself. If we really need to export the script, we can do it. We can maybe do that for people. I can't give them a file. It doesn't make any sense. Margaret, if we want to print this script somehow for them as a PDF, if they want to see it. But I first, at the top of the script, I commented, what's the difference between HEIF and HEIC? Because that was like one of my first things. Like, those 2 different formats. You can read this, but both, basically, they're the same thing, okay? And then, why is this script and why do we care? By default, Windows 11 Pro, as of this to date, does not support these things. It does if it throws a dialog at some point and you double click and go through the install manually on that particular computer. Once again, if you're supporting 1 or 2 computers, not a problem. You're supporting 20, 30, 40, 50, that becomes a bigger deal, okay? And so what we end up doing is writing a script that would spin in circles, and the script would first establish that it was actually an HEIC. And what Christian did here, and I'm going to let Christian talk about this a little bit, but Christian has this function, is this the read image? Is this the magic one, Christian? You want to jump in here? Oh, here it's down here.
Yeah. Read image will convert from HEIC to.
Yeah. GM image, this one right here. This is the one.
This one is to check if it's a valid JPEG.
That one right there. Okay, so the issue was that, remember, we have 2 situations. We have HEICs that report as HEICs. Perfect. I love it. I mean, listen, having a Windows and Mac not be totally compatible, I get that. But when you have an image that doesn't report itself as what it really is, that pisses me off. That just makes me mad, because a developer, it makes my life. I wasted a whole 8 hours of time going in circles chasing this damn thing, and Christian spent some time in there too. Just because of this one issue. HEIC is fine, we'll convert it. But HEIC that pretends it's a JPEG. So what we have to do is that we ran a loop And essentially, it runs this function right here. What I'm going to do is, because Christian Schmidt's documentation is so horrible, monkeybreadsoftware.com, I'm just going to do this like I'm going to pretend to do this. And then, let me see, and then Christian, at some point we can move him. Oh, there he is. I'm going to put him over here. So a smiling face is hiding out over here. So Christian's now up the bat. Now I'm going to go to FileMaker plugin, and then I want to search for GM image. So what do I do?
You want to go on the documentation page first.
Oh, I have documentation. Okay, the big D word. Then can I do a search in here, or do I just do GM?
Just graphics magic. Yes.
Graphics.
In the list at G.
Okay, so we got graphics magic. Now here's the thing. Let me just be clear. I had no idea what the function was when I had this problem. I just knew that Christian Schmidt was the lone ranger, the lone freaking ranger, okay? And I knew that if I texted him or sent him a message, he would know the answer, okay? And he will do the same for you if you buy his product, right? Buy his product. Go spend the money. It's cheap. It's inexpensive, okay? It's worth its weight in gold, literally. So Christian says, well, you can just do this conversion. So I solved the first problem. Then I said, well, I have HEICs reporting as JPEG. Have you ever heard of this before? And, he'll talk about that momentarily because he has some thoughts about maybe checking all the images all the time. So I have GM image new from container. GN image new.
Alphabetically.
I'm getting there. New.
Oh, you missed it.
From file, new from container. Click. Returns the image reference number on success. Loads a picture from a given container. Okay, that's cool. Reference, give you a number. Right here. If the image doesn't load, please check to see if it's HEIC, HIF, or RAW. RAW. So the idea that Christian knew that this would read it would read it successfully if it was a JPEG or PNG. So what his strategy was is that to go through every JPEG image in the system and have it read it and see if this would generate an error. All we're trying to do is have this function run and see if it gets an error. That's it. If it gets an error, then something's funky. And what we made assumption that it was an HEIC in that situation. And so we are able to identify the ones that were problematic, relabel the extensions as HEIC, then and convert them properly, right? But so I would never have known where this was at. Christian Schmidt, because of 7,224 functions, pretty much knows where all this stuff's at. He has most of them memorized, and he definitely has a general idea where to look if he doesn't have it memorized, which is great, much better than I. But this is very valuable because then it solves a real world problem, so I don't look intellectually challenged to the customer. Christian, give us your take. So you said that we should maybe think about people always checking the images anyway. Because so why don't you talk about it? You want to share your screen?
Well, imagine that you have a normal user. A normal user maybe takes a picture of an airplane part and then wants to show you where the scratch is. So he may take the picture, he may put it on his Windows computer, he may open Microsoft Word, put the picture in the Word document, adds maybe the arrow, and then saves the Word document. And now he wants to get the Word document into your picture field. So he wants to import the picture, and because it's a doc file, you can't open it. So he will rename it. He will give it the right extension, and then you get a Word file in your container for pictures. So basically, there may be anything in the picture, in the container. And
it never occurred to me that my customer would be that stupid, but they could. So depending upon what kind of app you're making, what your target audience is, people don't understand what extensions are and what their roles are in the world, even though we've had them for like before my daughter was born kind of stuff. And so the idea is that you should assume that people think that by changing the extension, they change the content of the file. And it's not true, but people do that. So Christian's thought process was that, well, maybe you should validate these things fundamentally, right? Is there any other way of validating it, reading it, having it coming back and telling you specifically what it is?
I thought about this. I could make a function because I have that internally in the plugin You know, I have these little functions which check if some data, if a block of data in memory is a JPEG, is a PNG, is a TIFF, is a PDF. There's a quick functions to take a look on the first bytes, and I just return you the type. And I could make a function to maybe identify data also.
Please. Margaret's laughing over here. Margaret's laughing. She said, well, I could make a function. She's on the floor laughing because invariably, you know, the necessity is the mother of invention is a phrase. I don't know where the hell that comes from, but us needing something is what causes things to be built. My need here to identify really what's in a container in a reliable sort of way is so basic to me. And clearly, when we told Claris to identify it, Claris doesn't really, FileMaker, when I say Claris is a company, FileMaker, the product, doesn't really inspect. I mean, if you go get container attribute, it will read it. It'll tell you about the metadata in it, and the size of it, but it doesn't do like a real analysis of the file. Does that make sense? When you say get, if we go into FileMaker, I'm just going to go into field definitions real quick, and I say, actually, let me go to help instead. It'd be better just to do it in help. If I say get container attributes, we go get, and that's a get function, but it's not a real get function. It's with no parentheses, get container. Or is this one actually in parentheses? No, I had it right. So it's a get function right here. And so this is all the stuff it returns, right? And so this is what FileMaker was doing, is it was giving us the name of what was in the file, because it got that from the operating system. And the operating system on the iPhone 12 with the iOS said, hey, here's this, and it's a JPEG when it was really an HEIC. And FileMaker, because they just said, hey, the operating system said it was JPEG, so we're good with that, dog. No validation at all. So it just reports the rumors that it heard from the operating system. So we need someone to, like a fact checker. That's what we need, a fact checker, Christian fact checker. It checks the facts on the container to see what's really in there. Can it identify it? How big is it? Any basic stuff that we need to know so we can make decisions on it. PDFs, Word files, docx files, whatever. Because you can't take the operating system's word for it. You can't take anyone's word. In fact, that's how hackers, a lot of times, not recently, but a lot of times hackers would mislabel images and stuff and stick them into apps back 10, 15, 20 years ago. There was a lot of security breaches where hackers would mislabel things, then stick them in a container, not in FileMaker per se, but in other browsers and stuff like that, cause the browser to malfunction. And then the browser basically opens itself up and lets them get into areas you're not supposed to get into. So mislabeling documents and sticking them into systems, whether done on purpose by bad people or on accident by people who don't know how computers work, that's a common thing. So
Richard?
Yes.
Can you read the sentence there on the documentation above the table? In addition, and then on the end, it may return invalid values. I would love to have a details on that. The next paragraph.
In addition, when databases are hosted on Windows or cloud and accessed via REST API, some attributes may return invalid functions. Okay, that's like Christian reading the fine print on a contract, realizing that says that this contract may be void and invalid, and you may be visited by a death squad at night randomly if you use these products. That's bad. All right, well, it's like flipping over rocks and seeing all the bugs run around. So it's not necessarily really, at the end of the day, well, okay, this is a separate issue that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, except that the server is Windows, but we're not accessing it via REST API. So this doesn't affect us. But understand that FileMaker may take the operating system's word for it. Oh, you swear that you own this car? Homeless guy with a Lamborghini, right? It's like, you own this car? Yes, officer, I own this car. Okay, I'll take your word for it. It's good. Move along. FileMaker may take the operating system's word for it, fine. But we have to have a way of like, okay, driver's license, we're going to inspect that. And then we're going to set the monkey bread with the new function that he's about to invent. Any second, it'll be available. Well, you have it ready tomorrow over Christmas. When's that going to be available, Christian Schmidt?
Good question. Maybe I have fun coding it tomorrow, but I think the next pre-release is after Christmas.
After Christmas, I'm outraged. I'm sorry. I'm having too much fun. All right, so we have
a question from David Angel. So with get layout object attribute, object name, and then content or image, does that work?
Well, it's going to. Okay, back up. If I will simply tell you that without reviewing the code that Claris has, without trying to hack it, I will simply say that if the metadata is in the image, like for example, this is kind of a, so you take a picture and it has a GPS. So I landed at Area 51 in the helicopter, okay? Right outside the edge of Area 51. I took some pictures. Those pictures will report my lat and long being right and Rachel, Nevada, right next to Area 51. So if I give those photos to someone, it has the latitude and longitude. It shows you exactly where those photos were taken, okay? If I was actually inside Area 51 and I took those pictures, those photos would almost constitute evidence of a crime of me being in a restricted area. Cool. So but that's the metadata that's underneath or within the image file somewhere. So what FileMaker will do is report back the metadata to you if it's there. On file size, it's probably going to measure that itself on its own as it stores it. It'll give you this data, but a lot of this, it may, I don't know, Christian, is this metadata or is it actually measuring this for real?
The first thing is the container has size and content type and how it's stored. And then the container usually has metadata included.
Which is what we're talking,
value,
which could be false. Could be false because we've already established that. Yep.
The thing here, width, height, DPI, this can come from the header, while on the bottom, the photos value can come from the EXIF metadata, which doesn't need to exist. So you can have pictures without this additional metadata.
Okay.
But when the plugin passes an image to FileMaker, we include here the basic metadata like width, height, and DPI. So FileMaker knows how to display the picture.
Okay.
Yeah, and for David's question, I would say if you use get layout object, you ask FileMaker about the attributes of the thing on the layout. So if you ask the layout object for its content, you basically get the container back, which you also get if you just read the field.
All right, hang on one second here.
So it wouldn't help.
So you're saying get layout object attribute?
That is for inspecting layout objects.
So when would you want to use, what you want to repeat what you just said a moment ago, since I have both of them up so people can follow?
Sometimes I write code to inspect what's on your layout, or so I may use the layout attribute code. Like what can we ask? We can ask left, width, right. So when you, for example, tell the plugin to take a screenshot of a container or web viewer, we will use this to ask FileMaker, where is this thing on the screen? So I can take the right location.
So these are very different, but they have very similar sort of usefulness, right? So
you want to have a script check what's on the current layout and then react to it.
Okay. Well, David's asking about get layout object attribute. You want to look at those questions there, David? He's asking about content and image.
Well, content would give us the image. The content you can see for graphics here. It would return the image data, which is a container value.
The question, though, is that, once again, it's graphics returns image data such as the name of the image file or a reference if the image is unstored or stored. Once again, I think that, I guess I could try that, go back and try that, but if I, it's real simple. There's metadata. Okay, back up. When we had this problem with the iPhone, it was an HEIC file reporting as JPEG. The metadata said it was JPEG. It was wrong. So the question is, in these functions, where does FileMaker reference the metadata? Where does it evaluate it for itself? Okay. And at least in terms of the file format, FileMaker takes the metadata. It doesn't actually evaluate it itself. So at least thus far with my experimentation. So That's why Christian Schmidt's such a valuable person.
So this HEIC file format is really interesting. It's a container format. It can actually contain different things. Like it can have this highly compressed image, which is actually something like MPEG encoding. And then it can have videos, like either MPEG or AV1, or it could also contain a normal JPEG. So within the HEIC file, you can have a highly compressed picture, you can have a small JPEG preview, and you can have a video.
Yeah.
Like if you make a live picture on your iPhone, you get a video and a picture in one file.
That's right, a live. That's that. And most of the time when you move that around, the live part of it gets stripped out. So, but yes, that's where you on your iPhone you take photo, and then if you go back and look at it in photos, it'll move a little bit, but then it shows you the still image. Reminds me very much of the Harry Potter when they'd see the newspapers and Harry Potter, and they'd have the newspapers would be paper newspapers. There'd be a little animated GIF that's animating the photo because it's magical, which I thought was really neat. Of course, promptly a bunch of tech companies said we should do that, right? So questions we have, because we don't have to go the full hour. We can give the rest of the time back. But this is, once again, good stuff. If you go to Monkey Bread Software, once again, feel free to reward Christian Schmidt for solving problems for you. Whether you've used him to solve problems yet or not, you will. If you're a professional FileMaker developer, you're doing a lot of development, even in your own company, you're doing it a lot, you're going to run into issues that Claris cannot solve or is not sufficiently motivated, they don't have time to solve. Christian Schmidt will solve it for them. This product has won Product of the Year award more than once.
If we have some time, I can show my little search thing for Windows.
Oh, he has new features for us. See, we did get new features for Christmas. All right, 1 second here before we do this. I'm going to go to the FileMaker plugin. You go here to Buy Now. Understand that's not $149 for each of the 5 seats. That's $149 covers all 5 seats, right? That really works out to $25 or something like that. Okay. Trust me, for the pain and agony this thing solves, and if you divide that over the course of 12 months, that's like $2 a month or something like that, or whatever, $3 a month for Monkey Bread per user. Dude, please take my money, okay? So please support Christian Schmidt. Go buy his product, because I do, and I am. All right, cool. All right, I'm going to quit sharing my screen. We're going to look at the new Christmas present. We all get a Christmas present for Christmas if you're a Windows user. How many of you are Windows users? Ready? How many of you are Windows users? Raise your hand. Margaret, who's Windows user?
David Angel, I know is off the top of my head. Oh yeah, he just said me. I don't know what the rest. Yeah, Ed Burkle is a Windows user. NJ is a Windows user. So anyway.
Okay, you are seeing my screen, but we got this little sample file coming with the current beta version, and I already improved a few things. So the key thing is you are working with a script.
Yep, on
and
Windows.
You want to search something.
Yep.
So I made a hotkey. So you press F8, and this will turn all your script steps into a little database here in this layout, and you can search here. So you can say, I want exit, and you find all the lines with exit script.
Okay.
The idea here is, let's say you search for $type ID. So we do a text search in this records, because we use the plugin to get this script text into records, and we can search the records. So you see which lines there are, and you can find those lines here, and well, you have the line number, and so you can jump back.
All right, Foxy Jack says, thanks for a wonderful year of training. I appreciate all you folks being here, really, honestly.
Yeah, well, it's Friday before Christmas, and
everyone's happy, right?
Yeah, people could be buying presents or.
All right, so Larry the Marine goes, hey, so I think this was already on Mac. So can you show us the comparison between Mac?
No, this is we are here on Windows 11.
Yes.
On Mac, the Mac side. Oh,
can you just go back to
a
Mac?
little bit different. So
yeah, so I enjoy
this is the Mac version.
Yep.
So,
I want to thank everyone.
So on Mac, we can just type here, and find something and it gets shown in yellow.
So
in
it's
the
a little more
script.
integrated is the difference, Larry.
Yeah.
So it's a little more integrated because he has some flexibility, but he did this Windows thing on to kind of give us something. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there was a thing, we combined several things. We have hotkeys with the MBS plugin. So we can set a script to run or expression to evaluate when something is happening when you press the key. And in case you press a key, we do a few things. We do here select all. We do a copy. We ask the clipboard for the copied script steps. And then we run a script in this other file.
Mm-hmm.
So it can parse the XML and build us this little this records here.
Okay.
Go to this window, go to this layout, and then add records, which show the data from the XML, so we can actually show you something. And we search both the visible text here as well as the XML. So we have here the XML for every script step. And it may help you. I mean, just have a script and press the hotkey to, oh no, wait, I have the hotkey now on Mac registered in the script. So there's no on Macos. This works on Mac and Windows.
Oh, okay.
And I think it may be helpful for people. We actually do search both the text and the XML. So you can find everything, not just the visible stuff, but also the thing hidden in some options. Yeah. And when you close the solution, we will release the hotkey. So.
Oh, that's very cool.
And of course, you can learn here about some XML query functions to find all the values. So if you need to parse XML yourself, it may be a good example. Okay, maybe after the holidays, someone can actually download the next beta and get this updated example and then tell me how well it works.
Okay, David Angel to the bridge. And he's David Angel still here? David, can you like download that? So what version of the beta? How do we get the beta? Can you show us getting the beta? So we go to the Monkey Bread website, hit FileMaker.
We have here pre-release.
Pre-release.
There are the last files. Also, you find it usually on our blog. So we have this wonderful here Advent calendar articles, and we have this announcement for the new version. And there you find that we got a search script example. Yeah, and if you have time, you can read through this 22 articles, as well as here the article about the search feature.
You know, just keep it up with the new stuff FileMaker Claris is doing and the new stuff that you're doing. It's a full-time job. There's a lot.
But
their new stuff is going to be like, oh, I know, you're prolific as hell. All right, well, hopefully people will put something in your stocking, Christian. All right, cool. Well, that's about it, everyone. Merry Christmas. Christian, anything else? Parting comments before I?
Well, just if people have wishes for next year, and even if Claris adds 1 or 2 features from the plugin, I can just add a few more.
All right, NJ, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Top Cat, Larry, Scott, Foxy Jack, Labo. God, Labo, we're all praying that you find your missing dog. It's been a hard year. His dog has been missing the entire year. And then Kermit the Frog is here once again. I'm going to finish off with a Kermit moment. There we go. Be better if he was on fire, but we'll just end with that. All right, everyone, have a good one. See you. Good job, Christian Schmidt. Let's see.
Thanks.
Am I sharing my screen? I'm sharing. Here we go. Closing. Hit the button. No law enforcement. All right, everyone. See you. Goodbye.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!